Good to see you all. And thanks for being here on this night. We were kind of ambivalent about the weather. We thought, well, it looks like it's just going to rain, so I think we're good. I apologize for it being so formal, but it is going to be on the local public access. So if we just sit up here, which is our instinct, just to like pull up chairs and sit in a big circle, nobody will be able to hear it, right? So please, forgive us. We're going to sit up there, but don't be intimidated. I hope you're not. And then, yeah, absolutely.
It feels so far away.
Would we be able to ask for notes of what happened, so when we can report back to our people when we?
That's a good question. We don't have like an official note taker, but we could certainly get you, would a copy of the broadcast be acceptable?
Yeah.
I bet we could do that.
Yeah, we could do that.
And we're not going to have any big, long speeches because we're really here to hear from you all. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll sit up there, we'll each introduce ourselves, we'll tell you what committees we're on real quickly, a couple of our big priorities, and then we'll stop. And then and you can come up, and we just want to have a couple ground rules to make sure that everybody gets an opportunity. So if you can just kind of go once, before everybody goes, right? We'll hold it to a couple minutes, and then we'll just go from there. Does that work for everyone?
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. So I'm going to.
Derek, did you ask them to come up to the mic?
Yeah. So when you're, and we don't have a formal cue system. But hopefully, we could just kind of, you can make eye contact and say, all right, you're going to come on up, and you can sit here. You can come up by yourself, or you can come up with a friend or family member, whatever. And if you come up here, then that way, you can be part of the conversation. Okay? All right. Good.
We're so happy you're here. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you. So. I'll sit here. I know it is far away. I know. But we'll just have to go with it. So I want to introduce Daniela Luna. Daniela,
It's your mic. You have to push the button.
I have to push it. I never served on the council or board of ed like some of my colleagues, so else I would know that. But Daniela Luna works in my office. She's a legislative aide. She's terrific. She's probably contacted or been in communication with many of you. So one, it's nice to put a face to the name, and just wanted to introduce her and thank her for her work. So thank you. And some of you may have some questions about driver's licenses, tests, and translations, things like that. And Kate Farrar serves on the Transportation Committee, so she's going to have some to add about that. And Daniela has been working on that issue too. So when we get there, we'll call on Daniela. Maybe I'll just keep going just because I'm already talking, and we'll just go down this way. Is that all right? Yeah. Okay. So my name is Derek Slapp, State Senator for the 5th State Senate District, which, as you know, covers West Hartford. It also covers most of Farmington, all of Burlington, and a increasingly smaller part of Bloomfield. We redistricted, as many of you know, and so the district's changed a little bit. So I have a little bit of Bloomfield. I serve on 5 committees. Chair of the Higher Education and Employment Advancement Committee. So we have cognizance over, UConn, the CSU system, right? The private colleges as well. The community colleges, Board of Regents, right? All that. We work on pipeline issues, affordability, accessibility in higher education, making sure that we have the workforce for the employers and matching, right? We did a lot of that last year. But anyway, so higher education, chair of that, vice chair of GAE, which is Government Administration and Elections. And some of you are, as I am, very passionate about early voting, and that's a big priority of ours this session because you all voted. I don't know if every single one of you did, but the statistics would suggest that at least 60% of you, if not more, voted for the constitutional amendment to allow the legislature to craft the rules around early voting, right? We're one of 9 states with essentially no early voting. So now we got to figure out exactly how that's going to work, right? And like everything, it's more complicated than it seems. So we're going to be working on early voting in the GAE committee. I also serve on the Aging Committee and on the Appropriations Committee. That's my first time on Appropriations, and some of my colleagues are on Appropriations as well. And of course, that's, a very important committee because, our budget says what our values are, right, in many ways. And then finally, public health. And that's the first time I've been on the Public Health Committee. Some of my colleagues as well are on public health, and maybe they might want to talk about some of the issues that are coming up there. So kind of the last thing I'll say before I hand it off to my friend Tammy Exum, who's state representative as well, is just that I think some of the big priorities here for us this session is going to be education and fairness and funding education, affordability, and please don't, I don't know where they rank, 1, 2, or 3 or whatever, but I'm just going off the top of my head. Affordability is going to be a big one. We're all getting pinched by inflation, and you're going to see various proposals regarding taxes, regarding energy costs, really healthcare costs, prescription drug costs, but we're going to do whatever we can to try to lower the cost of living and retiring and working in Connecticut. That's going to be, I think, a big priority for all of us, and to do it, I would say, in a fair and equitable way. Without eliminating the guardrails that we have in place that have really helped turn our state budget around, right, in many respects. Like, we've upgraded the bond rating, and we're finally paying off debt, as many of you know. So we've done some good things, so we need to kind of find that balance, but I think that's going to be a big challenge of ours. Why don't I leave it there, because I know we're going to talk about a lot of issues through the evening, and I'll hand it off to Representative Exum. But just want to say again, thank you for being here, and look forward to hearing about your priorities.
Good evening. Thank you so much. Can you hear me? Okay. It's good to see you this evening. We have not done something like this in person in quite some time with COVID, and so it's nice to actually see people in person. I do not like being this far away from you, but other than that, it really is very good. So I'm State Representative Tammy Exum. I represent the 19th District, which is a part of West Hartford and Avon. And I used to, before redistricting, also have a piece of Farmington, but that is no longer the case. And so this time, I'm serving as the Vice Chair of Appropriations. It is my first time on the Appropriations Committee, but I'm very excited about it because most things come through one of the money committees, so Appropriations and/or Finance. So that is just the way the legislation works, and I have that opportunity to look at really all of the legislation that we really plan to have some spending or having some allocations around. So that is exciting for me. My understanding is that this time we have 12 subcommittees, and I will have about 6 of those subcommittees that I'll be responsible for. Each of the subcommittees have chairs, and I will be working with them and working on specific legislation, for whether it's education or higher education or just different committees that we have within the legislature. I also will be serving for the first time on Human Services, and I am very excited about being a part of this committee because so many things that I have worked to champion around for so much of my life for the last 20 plus years has been around disabilities, and also here lately I've been doing a work around mental health, and I am very excited about the work that we're able to do on that committee. I also serve as a deputy majority leader, and in that role I really screen bills, looking at bills that may be coming forward and helping to have a say into whether or not those bills do in fact come to the floor, talking to members around their voting for those bills, really working with other colleagues in that capacity. And I am also finally, one of the last session, the bill that this year we have a bill 5001 that I'm sure Representative Gilchrist will talk about. But every year the House has their kind of biggest priority is their top bill. Their bill is called 5001. And last year, the bill 5001 was an act concerning children's mental health, and I helped to write and lead that legislation, which I am so proud of. It was a really big piece of legislation that came out of the need that we were seeing for young children having different mental health issues, and we've been reading about them in the newspaper as far as the emergency rooms and things like that, but we really wanted to work on a bill that dealt with the prevention and the intervention and really how we best support our youngest and most vulnerable, and this came out of a lot of outreach from parents and the provider community. So that was a big piece of work that we did, and we passed it bipartisanly last year. It went through both chambers, and everyone voted in the affirmative for that. And this year, I plan to work on the oversight and implementation of that. So it's important that we got a bill passed, but now we have to make sure it actually works. And so I will have a role in that as well. And then I'm also on some subcommittees. I'm on the governor's workforce group, and I am a council, and I'm a part of the Persons with Disabilities subcommittee as a part of that work. And I'm also on the Autism Advisory Council. So at this point, I'll turn this over to, a little bit busy, turning this over to Jillian. Good to see you.
Great. Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me? Okay, great. Jillian Gilchrist, State Representative for the 18th District, which is just a portion of West Hartford. And this is my first year being a chair on a committee. I'm chairing the Human Services Committee. As Representative Exum mentioned, the Human Services Committee oversees disability services, but also the Department of Social Services and the Medicaid program, which supports so many people in our state to access health care. And so priorities this year on the committee, there are a number, but 2 that are rising to the top are Medicaid reimbursement rates. So we provide fairly low, unfortunately, Medicaid reimbursement rates. And what we're finding is that that's contributing to the workforce issue that we have in the healthcare field. It's hard to attract employees when they can just go to Massachusetts or to another provider type that doesn't accept Medicaid. And so we're seeing that there are waiting lists, and it's really creating this inequitable system where individuals who are on Medicaid can't get the same healthcare services, even though they're within the Medicaid program that other individuals have access to. So we'll be looking at a better way going forward to adjust our rates and to bring those up to either Medicare levels or the private industry level. And then, as Representative Exum said, our top priority as House Democrats in the Human Services Committee is 5001, which is a bill to address the IDD population. And this is a population that we feel has been overlooked for far too long. And so there is a financial commitment behind this priority. And so right now, there was a snafu with the title of the bill. So if you have concerns with that, we are fixing the title of the bill, but also filling in the blanks. We're at that point in the process. And so we're reaching out to the community, trying to hear what is the best way that we can support the IDD population. Additionally, I serve on the Public Health Committee. I also serve on the Appropriations Committee and the Judiciary Committee. And then I co-chair the Reproductive Rights Caucus, and so we will be working on legislation to continue to expand access to all types of reproductive health care for those who choose not to continue a pregnancy and for those who choose to continue to do so. So we want to look at the full spectrum. I also chair the Trafficking in Persons Council. We have some policies that are coming from some recommendations from that body. I'm new to the JJPOC, the Juvenile Justice Policy and Oversight Committee, and I also chair the MAPOC, which is the Medical Assistance Policy Oversight Committee, which oversees the state's Medicaid program. So happy to be here and to see you. I echo, it's nice to be back in person for these types of events.
Hi, everyone. Hopefully you're not bored with us yet. We're getting to you very, very shortly. But I will finish us out. I am State Representative Kate Farrar. I proudly represent the 20th District, which includes Southern West Hartford, Elmwood, and then Western Newington, which was a part of the redistricting with the census. And I am just starting my second term. And in regards to priorities, I kind of share those from the standpoint of, you know, kind of throughout the last year and talking to so many of you and continuously getting your feedback, there's really kind of three main priorities that I would share, and they really fit into the committees that I'm serving on. So one that is a very big priority for me is how we really ensure that everyone in our state, and not just the wealthiest few, can really thrive. And for me, that means serving as vice chair of our Finance Committee, which does address the revenues and how our tax code is structured. And when you look at our tax code, sadly to this day, our working people in our state are paying 4 times the rate and the amount of their annual income than the richest in our state. And so it really requires making sure that we are continuing the large tax cuts that we made for working and middle class families, and that we really look at implementing taxes on the wealthiest to pay what they owe for our state to really thrive. So in that role as Vice Chair of Finance, we really kind of are the mirror committee to what Representative Exum mentioned as the Appropriations Committee. So on Finance, we look at what money is coming in, and then on Appropriations, they look at how we're spending it. And I would just share in regards to those committees, you know, we are putting together what will be a biennial budget. And we definitely will make adjustments next year, but this year's session is really about putting forward a 2-year budget. Another priority of mine that I've heard certainly from folks about is definitely around how we are creating incredible career pathways for our students, for folks who are changing careers. So I also serve on the Higher Education Employment Advancement Committee with Senator Slapp. And for me personally, a lot of the focus is, you know, how we make sure that our incredible high-wage jobs, like manufacturing or the trades, are really pathways that so many of our women and people of color are accessing. And in the 20th District, we have a lot of manufacturing companies, so it's something in my time as representative that has been great to work on that issue. And then finally, I've certainly heard from many of you about how are we making our communities safer, more livable, and greener, especially when it comes to transportation. And so that's why this term I am serving on the Transportation Committee. I know that for us in the town of West Hartford, It's been particularly heartbreaking in the last month with the injuries and deaths that we've seen in our town. And you all can also understand in the news that it's been incredibly heartbreaking for us as colleagues of Representative Q. Williams, who also died in a traffic accident. And so for us on the Transportation Committee, there's definitely going to be a lot of activity this year, particularly in regards to the safety of our roads. But also in the 20th District, we have any number of our fast track stations, our potential train station in West Hartford, a lot of street improvements going on. So we definitely want to be making our town overall more livable, and so that everyone can get around, be it by car, be it by bike, be it by with their feet. So those I kind of share as the highlights. And again, this is the start of the session, so so much is going to change between now and the first week in June, and that's why it's so helpful for us to hear from you now. But you'll always be able to be in touch with us because we want to make sure that we hear from you now, but that we hear from you throughout session as bills change and as we set further priorities. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
And am I on? Okay. We do have. No, I'm not. We do have 2 additional House seats in West Hartford because of the redistricting. One of them is vacant right now. Representative Vargas resigned to take a position at Central, I believe. So there'll be a special election next month to fill that seat. The other seat is held by Representative Gibson. Most of his district is in Bloomfield, but he has a little bit of West Hartford in the north end of northern section of West Hartford. He is supposed to be here in probably about 10 minutes or so. So great that he'll be joining us, and we'll let him do an introduction at that point. But why don't we get to it? And if anybody wants to come up, and again, I just ask that you keep your comments to just a couple minutes so we can make sure that everybody gets a chance to speak. So yeah, you in the back, come on up, and then why don't we get to you, Courtney, after? Is that all right? Yep. Okay, so come on up. Yeah, he's on deck. We know him. He's okay. He's good. So, all right.
Probably just have to push that button. Perfect.
Thank you for running this tonight. I live in the Buena Vista section of West Hartford, and there's 2 issues I'd like to bring up. One, I am a retired physician, a surgeon in town. I have spent many hours at the Legislative Office building. I think you are all aware that there is a doctor shortage, and it is growing. I am aware that I am sure that the death and dying bill is going to take up a lot of time. It'll be the 3rd time I've seen it go through. However, I think it's way more important that somebody get a grasp on the lack of doctors. You try to find a new primary care physician, you can spend hours online. I found mine as I was going on Medicare by actually writing 2 personal letters. That is the only way that I found an internist to take over my care before I went on Medicare. That's my first issue. My second issue is I do serve on the Senior Advisory Commission here in town. A subgroup has been working, trying to persuade our town, which is now building its 5th luxury apartment building. We would like to see somebody build an apartment building for seniors. It does not have to be lower than low income, but how about a 1-bedroom apartment for maybe $1,500 or $1,600? We don't need the Peloton bike, we don't need the fire grill in the backyard. But it would be really nice to have that building's lobby staffed by a person who could help out. And that's what we all want for our elderly parents. And now that I'm 70, in another 10 years or so, that's what I'd like for myself. We've got tons of assisted living places. All of us will spend a time where we want to give up our 2-story West Hartford homes that have stairs. It's a win-win for the entire town because we move into an apartment, it places that home up for sale for a young family, and I know that the West Hartford Inn is being built as affordable housing, but I am really asking for how to go about trying to develop a senior apartment building where particularly single women can feel safe going out to the market, can feel safe going out front and getting on a bus. So those are my two issues, the lack of doctors and senior apartment buildings in town, and how do we attract a developer to do that? Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you mind sharing your name?
Yes,
and
it's
then
Beth
we're happy
Rocco, R-O-C-C-O.
Nice to see you.
And what group with the seniors, you said, what subcommittee?
The Senior Advisory Commission.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
Okay.
And Beth, thanks. And we may not have the answers right away, but that's something too, if you give us, if you want, we won't spam you, but if you want, you can give us your contact information and then we can follow up and try to connect. Some of them might be town issues, Beth, some of them might be state issues, and we'd love to continue the dialogue, certainly about how to attract more doctors.
Okay.
Yeah, Beth, and I would just add, I'm sure there's going to be a few bills this session specifically about shortages in our medical professions. So we would love to have your participation, and we can make sure that we connect about what public hearings might be coming up.
With the Connecticut Society of
Oh,
Physicians,
excellent.
And I'm sure you know Deb Osborne, so.
Yeah, excellent, because that's the feedback that we need when we put together what that legislation is going to look like.
Good evening. I'm Courtney Borns. I'm here to speak briefly about the importance in this very, very wealthy state of having a budget that represents equity for all of our citizens. We have 12 billionaires who live in the state. We have over 10,000 families who earn multiples of $1 million every year. We also have about 50% of our population, I think, who lives at or below the federal poverty line. 85,000 who need affordable housing. There are another 100,000 working families who are struggling to make ends meet. And I'm here just to introduce you, if you need the introduction, and Kate, I know you don't, to the wonderful, relatively new organization called Recovery for All. It's a coalition bringing together more than 60 community, faith, labor, and nonprofit advocacy organizations representing hundreds of thousands of people from all walks of life across Connecticut. We had a press conference today, and Kate spoke at it, I'm pleased to say. One of, I think, perhaps 16 of your colleagues who have signed on to the agenda for an equity budget. And I won't go through it all, but I would like to leave each of the four of you with copies of the agenda. But the importance today is that we, I say, are nearly the wealthiest state and the wealthiest country in the world, and we have one of the highest income inequalities given those wealthy people I talked about who pay only a fourth of the, let me put it this way, those who are in the lower 50% of our population pay 4 times more, higher percentage of their incomes toward taxes than the wealthy people do. So those who can least afford to pay taxes pay a higher percentage of their income than those who are extremely wealthy. So this agenda focuses both on where money should be invested in order to make sure that our hundreds of thousands of people who struggle at or below the poverty line can have education, jobs, transportation, affordable housing, health care. I heard education mentioned, Derek. One of the things they're pressing for is to make sure that every child in this state has an opportunity to have a higher education. And there's talk of raising tuitions. So I'm hoping that your committee will consider, as they say, robustly funding public institutions so that every Connecticut resident has that opportunity. There are a number of different places here where they're focused, but you've heard me outline in general what those are. Their costs are associated with them, estimated costs. But I heard tonight on ABC, if I'm not mistaken, on Channel 8, that we have, a $300 billion surplus? Am I off on that? It's a huge surplus that the state has this year. We're in a good position. Part of the agenda is to say we want to increase the marginal tax rate for single people who earn $1 million or more, or who $2 million or more if they're joint filers. We want to increase it slightly more for single people who earn $10 million or more, or $20 million or more for joint filers, and a further marginal rate increase for single earners who earn $25 million or more, or $50 million or more. Now these numbers are unheard of, but that's why we are such a wealthy state, and they should pay their fair share. And so this wonderful coalition of more than 60 community groups, Recovery for All, has a strong advocacy base. They have 16 legislators who have signed on, as I believe you have, Kate. If I don't put you on the spot, Kate spoke today at the press conference briefly. And it was so heartening to hear you speak and others to support this agenda. So I will stop there. If I may, may I approach you and give you each a copy of this?
Approach the bench, yeah.
And then I also have a few copies left. I'll put in the table back here for others. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you so much. I want to let you know I am a member of Recovery for All and just haven't signed on yet, so I'll sign on as soon as possible.
I'm in the same boat as Jillian, so.
All right.
Yeah.
I'll put you on the spot, Tammy.
Yeah, but you put me on the spot, but absolutely.
All right. Listen to that. We have 4 people up here who are either signed up or ready to sign up.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, we just got a reminder to
From when?
from when.
Great.
Your way. Thank you so much.
I memorize it. Thank you.
Thank you, Courtney.
Thank you.
All right, this is great.
Courtney, I'm glad you don't want to raise mine.
Not at all. Not at all.
And that's part of the point. We're not trying to raise taxes on those who
Trying to
can't.
reduce your taxes.
Hi, I'm Carrie Stockman. It's
So nice. You want to turn your mic on? Nice to see you. There you go. Perfect.
I'm Carrie Stockman, and I so appreciate, Derek, your amazing support for my issue, which is... Okay, I'll talk louder. Okay.
It's on.
It's on. I am here on behalf of 800 friends who have just been evacuated from Afghanistan because of their service to the United States military, and I apologize for flooding all of your emails with these long explanations, but I thought better in advance than having to do it here. And Daniela, thank you so much for your help on that. It's nice to meet you. Okay, so, better if I'm not. I'm here to talk about, I'm here to talk about access to driver's licenses for our Afghan friends who serve the U.S. military in Afghanistan, but are not able to really get a driver's license because their limited English proficiency means they can't pass the learner's permit test. Now, there are ways in this state for people to have their languages added as regularly offered by the DMV. One of the ways is under Title VI, Federal Civil Rights Movement, which is you have to have, if you have 5% of your population speaking this language at home, it is the federal government will not fund agencies that do not offer language opportunities to participate in their programs. In Connecticut, the requirement is 1%. We have 800 people who have just been evacuated last year. I'm waiting to hear back from the Census Department to see if we can find out exactly how many people in this state speak Pashto and Dari, but I don't know that yet. However, there are ways to make exceptions to this 1% requirement, which I would comment and say for people whose lives were risked and who suffered personal risk and horrific loss in the case of my Afghan refugee that I'm working with, we should make an exception to this rule. And it's easy for the DMV commissioner to just simply declare the Office of Legislative Research has done this research, thanks to Representative Comey's requests. So either the commissioner can do it, or there is a language equivalency, a limited English proficiency committee in all of the government divisions. But within the DMV, there is one that can simply make a decision that this is a unique case. They had done that in the case of adding Arabic in 2017. And I'm trying to find the minutes. It's so opaque to try and get the information about this. I have reached out and spoken to the acting, or the aide to the acting legal head within the DMV, and not had any response, but had hoped that this issue would be placed before the LEP at their last meeting. I can't find the agendas, I can't find the schedules, I can't find the minutes, but they can go ahead and add Pashto and Dari in this very limited, discreetly identifiable situation. So I have told you and written to you, and we have wonderful people who've worked with IRIS, who are sponsors. We all just have really not been able to move this forward. So I've talked a long time, and I know you've worked on it, so thank you.
Carrie, thank you. Your advocacy and your heart is just incredible, and I'm just blown away by it. I mean, you're just trying to help people, and it's just really inspirational. And you know, we're with you 100%, and we want to help these families. And so, Kate, Representative Farrar serves on the Transportation Committee. I think she might have something to add. And then Daniela, if you want to jump in and you could just tell folks where we are with this too, that'd be great.
Hi, thank you so much for sharing that. And thank you anyone else who came tonight about this particular issue. I'm so glad, as you said, that Representative Comey has started to work with you on it. And I should tell you that Representative Comey and I are familiar with this issue because similarly, we've actually been trying to get an exception for the Nepalese community, which makes a significant part of our West Hartford and Representative Comey's Branford communities. And we similarly have met a lot of frustration in working with the DMV to even consider exceptions to, as you said, what has been the 1% rule. And I can tell you that in the case of the Nepalese population, we did get a ruling and they rejected any consideration of the Nepalese population. And so we are actually pursuing a legislative route, and that's actually what I would suggest that we do similarly at this point with our Afghanis, because I was also informed that there was, a special task force that was working with the Afghani refugees, and there would be an exception. So it was sadly, unfortunately, a surprise to me that this exception had not been fulfilled. And so I will tell you that I just saw Representative Comey today, and we, kind of had the quick conversation back and forth about making sure that we're not only, again, kind of pursuing the Nepalese request that we had, but then we bring forward, again, this critical piece of the refugees that was not addressed. So what I would suggest is, in particular, as you have been doing, definitely encourage folks to keep communicating with their legislators directly, because what we'll be trying to do is have it be a part of a public hearing that will be in the Transportation Committee. And then you all can certainly participate in that way and express these very amazing stories that, as you said, you already have to share why this is so critical. So I definitely would keep doing the outreach that you're doing across the state to make sure this is something that legislators are aware of. But happy, again, to work with Representative Comey and yourself to make sure that it comes forward in the Transportation Committee. Yeah. Do you want to add to that, Danielle?
I think Rep. Farrar's is a little bit more substantive. I could only add that I did reach out to DMV. Unfortunately, the DMV doesn't have a liaison. As us as aides reach out to the liaison. So unfortunately, we haven't been able to contact them directly, but they were checking with their head of the person that does the translations. Unfortunately, they weren't able to give me that information before this meeting. However, they are aware that there are concerns regarding the translation, that there was an issue regarding the translations, that maybe there was a misunderstanding of Pashto and Dari. So they are aware that our office, Senator Slapp's office, is inquiring about this. So, yeah.
And we might ask for people who they're able to, you could consider using that microphone too, if it works. Either one is fine. I think that one was louder, right? So you probably were all able to hear a little bit better. But wherever you are most comfortable is fine.
Okay, yeah. Is that okay?
Yeah.
My name is, thank you very much for having this forum, and my name is Ruth Groby, and I'm actually from Farmington, but I am a constituent of Senator Slapp's, and I'm also an officer in the Citizens Coalition for Equal Access, which is a small grassroots disability advocacy organization, and I would like to introduce one of the self-advocates from the Citizens Coalition for Equal Access. This is Suzanne Garaffa, who is a resident of West Hartford and a constituent of Representative Farrar. And I have two hats on tonight. I would like to just reiterate what Carrie Stockman just said, because I also volunteer and help an Afghan family. But tonight, what I would like to talk about, and Suzanne has asked me to do the talking, I'd like to bring your attention to the equipment problems facing people with mobility disabilities who number around 55,000 in the state of Connecticut. And one of the most serious and pressing problems is the lack of availability of medical diagnostic equipment that meets the 2017 U.S. Access Board standards for accessibility. Medical diagnostic equipment includes exam tables, weight scales, and imaging equipment such as mammography machines. National and statewide research has demonstrated that inaccessible equipment contributes to significant disparities in health outcomes for people with disabilities. And to give you an example from Suzanne's life, on December 12th of last year, a local diagnostic imaging center refused to accept Suzanne for an X-ray appointment, even though she had always been going to them in the past. And her doctor's office confirmed that several other patients in the practice who use wheelchairs had been turned away by the same company. A second major issue for people in wheelchairs is playing out in state legislatures across the country and is precipitated by the fact that the wheelchair provision and repair market has become the monopoly of two large nationwide companies. These two companies do not provide emergency services on weekends, and getting replacement parts and repairs for your wheelchair can take months of waiting and endless calling to find out what is happening. And this can lead to you're being stuck in bed for weeks and other significant health issues, and backup chairs can be unusable for a variety of reasons. In Suzanne's case, again, she has experienced repair delays that have left her stranded for weeks without a way to get around. Her former wheelchair has gotten too small for her to use safely and comfortably, so she's only got the one chair, and when it takes forever to get repairs, she's out of luck. With regard to these two issues, State Representative Mike D'Amico has submitted legislation, HB 5927, to the Public Health Committee, and HB 5755 to the Human Services Committee. So I'm hoping you guys will have a chance to review the legislation. And then the final equipment issue involves the lack of portable lifts in travel facilities such as airports and hotels. Although we do not have a bill related to this issue, we're just working to raise the awareness of the abled community about how many obstacles there are that keep people who use wheelchairs and have mobility limitations, keep them from full participation in our community and society. And Suzanne has conducted an informal consumer survey of people with mobility disabilities that confirms how hard it is to travel for people who need transfer assistance from their wheelchairs. So we just wanted to bring all these issues to your attention tonight because Suzanne and I believe that timely, convenient access to the proper equipment is a right under the ADA that is essential to people with mobility disabilities having the same access to health care, community, and travel that abled people enjoy. And thank you so much, and if I may, can I give you a copy of this statement?
So nice to have you and Suzanne. Thank you all for being here. And we'll get right to looking at those bills.
Ruth, we sent them a copy of the survey, right?
Yes, when we sent,
Yes, I did get that.
you got that?
Yes.
Derek, you
Yes.
got it?
Got it.
Thank you.
May I say something?
Please.
Okay. Thank you, Ruth, for helping me. I appreciate it. I need your support. I am a disabled individual, and as you see, I fight for change. I used to live at Bishop Corner, fellowship housing, and I fought for the crosswalk button where they push so they can go across so they don't get hit, because people ride and just keep going and they don't look at us. I'm finding living at 1078 New Britain Avenue with the able population, because I'm on Section 8 now, nobody is actually listening to us. When I go to the doctors and I have to get x-rays and I get told I can't do it because I'm in a wheelchair, this should not be. It's 2023. We are people too. Everybody needs to be able to be around and survive. I'm going to say this real quick and then I'm going to leave. I go into nursing homes to visit a friend, all right? We are running into, if you are in a nursing home, you have no say. You have no say of what they do to you. You have no say of what happens, okay? We have nowhere to go. When we lose our place, we end up in a nursing home. It's just like she said. She needs more housing for her. We need places where just because we're in a wheelchair and we need more assistance, we should not be locked up in nursing homes. And I go to my friend's place every single day. He calls me and he tells me what's going on. I'm keeping track because I was told to. So we can fight this later on, but we shouldn't have to fight. But I'm here to fight. So I have Suzanne Fights for Change. You have my email. I will keep going. Don't be afraid to call me. Don't be afraid to push me. I will do it. It will take time, but I will do it. But I'm going to keep punching you guys to answer us, because I don't take no for an answer. And that's why I'm with her too.
You shouldn't. That's why we're here. And I don't want you to stop fighting. So we're so grateful that you are using your activism, not just for yourself, but for so many friends. So thank you.
I'm doing this for other people,
Yeah.
not just for me.
Exactly. Yeah, so thank you, Suzanne. Thank you,
Don't
Ruth.
forget us out there, okay?
Yes, absolutely. So I will follow up with you all about those bills and if we have any questions on some next steps. we
Thank
can
you
work
very
on
much.
together. Yes,
And
of
thank you for
course.
listening to us.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you both.
Thank you.
And Ruth, we did it.
Yeah, it's voice activated, so once it's.
Good evening. I'm Christine Feely, and I'm a constituent of Representative Farrar. And thank you, as Ayla said, hi. Thank you for having this session. I have one sort of main topic I want to speak to and a couple of other things. So I am much in favor of providing lunch to school children. I did not read through I think the bill is just like a couple of lines, but I don't know if that's the bill that will actually end up, but I am in favor of the providing school children with free lunch. It's hard to imagine children learning in an environment without having lunch. I am very much against reinstating the death penalty, and I believe there's also a House bill that along that. So I want to register my strong negative reaction to that. The main area that I do my volunteer work in has to do with clean and renewable energy, and there are a number of bills having to do with energy this year, House bills. A couple of them that I just want to speak to particularly is that there's one that has to do with energy efficiency and clean energy in buildings. And so moving away from fossil fuels in buildings. Whatever can be done to that effect, again, whatever that final wording is, I'm very much in favor of that and moving away from fossil fuels. And the other one that I'm very much in favor of right now is expanding the construction and use of solar canopies. I don't know if you know that the People's Action for Clean Energy, it did a whole report, and they identified locations in all the towns in Connecticut. And West Hartford alone has 63 locations that are suitable for solar canopies. Yeah, which is mind-boggling, because I drove around town and I found some, but when I saw that, 63, I mean, that is really a lot. I mean, the parking lot here, I'm pretty sure is one of them. But so it really is time to get on board with solar canopies, and I think that there are rules and regulations right now that restrict or dampen the ability of solar to be sold back to the utility. So for instance, one of the areas that I live near, and so I see this, is the parking lot at Conard High, because I live right down the street from there. It's huge. I mean, it is huge. Just the one on the west side is huge, never mind the one on the south side, which I haven't counted the spaces yet. But I don't know if there are, I think, and I don't know that if there are restrictions on, if the school doesn't use all that, which of course they would not during the summer, then the energy needs to be, electricity needs to be sold back to the electric company. I don't even know if that's possible now, but that type of allowance would be absolutely critical. The town already has solar. I don't know that the solar on the roof produces all the energy for this, electricity for this building, but there will be a lot of places where solar canopies, that electricity will need to go elsewhere. And I think that might be a new process or a new allowance type procedure. So I'm very much in favor of that. And I know there are some other bills, but I haven't looked at them and don't have that list in front of me. But clean energy, renewable energy, moving away from fossil fuels, all the possibilities, which I often hear, well, we can't do that, we can't do that, we can't do that, we can't do that. We really have to, with clean and renewable energy, we need to get rid of the attitude that we can't do that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Would you wonderfully send us that report on the solar canopies? Yeah, because I hadn't seen that, and I'm sure that would be really helpful as we look at that legislation. So
They did a lot of work for all of us.
yes, please send that. Yes, that would be very helpful. Thank you.
And as you're thinking about legislation that you care about this session, there is a bill tracking feature to the website, and if you email any of us, we can connect you with that bill tracking. So we can, and you can do it by bill number, and you probably don't know the bill number. I don't know many of the bill numbers either, but I know, the subject that you might be interested in, so we can connect you with that. And just to put things in context, there's about 3,000 bills that will be proposed this legislative session, and about 250 to 300 or so, I think, ultimately will pass. So this year, any legislator can propose essentially any bill. That's different than next year, and every other year that's the case. So there's a lot of proposals out there. Some will fly, some won't. So, anyways, good to see you, Judy.
Yeah.
I'm Judy Allen, and I came prepared to talk about the MDC. But I want to say how much other things that people are talking about that I agree with and support. And especially my neighbor, my next door neighbor, is in a wheelchair. And I have gone through with her the problems with getting replacement parts, getting things fixed. She got stranded in a parking lot once because her chair broke down. So but my interest is in the MDC, and I'll say a few things. If legislation is being considered to look at their charter, I think there was a proposal last year or the year before about a task force to take a look at the charter, and I thought it was a great idea. It needs to be a smaller task force. Term limits for commissioners would be fabulous, and to make a way for a commissioner to be removed as a commissioner. Right now, if a commissioner is found to be in violation of an ethics code or of any of their bylaws around appropriate behavior for commissioners, the only thing that can happen is a letter being sent to the appointing authority saying this person did wrong, and that's it. There's no way to remove that commissioner. And recently that's become a bigger issue because of the things that are going on with the MDC around ethics violations. And you may have seen in Sunday's paper a big article about the environmental injustice happening in Hartford that involves the MDC and their responsibility to handle sewer overflows and make the infrastructure change that's necessary. They need to be held accountable. It's hard to do that with the charter the way it is. But I'm willing to help in whatever way I can to get those changes made. Thank you.
Thank you, Judy. Yeah, it was Senator Lesser, myself, and Representative Del Nicky who introduced that bill that Judy mentioned, and there are a lot of interest protecting us from making reforms at the MDC at the Capitol, but we're going to keep trying. You know. Yeah.
My name is Sue Prehar, and I have contacted, I think I talked to you, trying to make an appointment, and you were lovely, so thank you so much. On a personal note, I will say that West Hartford Town does forbid all canopies at this time for solar panels, because I tried to get it from, I don't want to put solar panels on my roof. I would like to put them as a ground array. I think that's safer, especially in extreme weather. I think that's something that West Hartford does need to invest in, is extreme weather preparedness. But that is not actually why I came. I need help to create funding for a new forever group home to be run by DDS, to serve hopefully 3-4 young men who are severely autistic and have the highest level of need. We are our own category of lawn sevens. We have in our home documented abuse, neglect, and fraud. We have advocated, we call ourselves the Mullen Hill Moms. We have advocated for our sons. We have reported them to numerous oversight agencies, to the point that the agency has withdrawn from our group home since the beginning of 2022, but nobody wants us. No agency will take us. So we are stuck. Jordan Sheff, Stacy Silva Gordon, they all know about our home. They are all constantly in the house. The agencies that we have specifically spoken with, CRI, Journey Found, Horizons, and JCL, will not create a new home for us. No one seems to want to make a new home. So it's ideally, DDS would get funding to create a new home for our guys, run it in a way that is humane. And there is an increasing number of high-need young adults. And so it would be kind of nice to start doing it right. Even if there's a process for parents to collaborate and create nonprofit organizations to purchase homes so that there's not such a burden, and then DDS run it, we have to come up with other options. Our sons are being, again, abused and neglected, and it is documented. You don't have to take my word for it. And I do welcome you to speak with Jordan Sheff. Again, he knows about Mullen Hill. Thank you.
I just want to say thank you for sharing that, and I am so very sorry that is the experience that your sons and others are experiencing. And there are other ways to do this better, and I appreciate your challenge, and it is something that I know we're currently speaking about because we know there are other models in other states and within places that people have created themselves. So thank you for sharing, and we'll continue to definitely be working on this. This is a really important issue, and we're hearing more and more about it.
If you need any support or people, I am happy to and all of us are going to be happy to do whatever information you need or give you whatever information you need or just be part of the process, but we don't even know how.
Maybe could we grab your contact information after this ends? Yes, ma'am. Okay, thank you.
Hi, I'm Tammy Sillinger, and I'm in Jillian Gilchrist's area in West Hartford. And first of all, I'd like to thank you guys for all the help you've been already for us. Right now, I'm in a situation, I have 2 children with intellectual disabilities. And the problem I'm running into, and I have for years now, is they're under our insurance and Medicaid. And my husband is planning to retire in the near future, so that puts them just on Medicaid. So when I'm looking for any kind of doctors for them, they have to take Medicaid. And I've spent the last 8 years looking for a psychiatrist and still don't have anybody. There's one doctor or somebody said, oh, they work with people with intellectual disabilities. That's what she wants to do. So I contacted the doctor's office and they said, oh, we don't take Medicaid though. Well, adults with intellectual disabilities, many of them will be on Medicaid as their primary source. So we need to do something to make that possible. And if they do take Medicaid, they certainly don't take new patients. So I hit on all sides, and my daughter hasn't seen a dentist in a while because the dentist she had said she's an adult. She's in her 30s now. I'm not going to take her. I'm a pediatric dentist. And all I can find is like through the hospitals, but she can handle certain things. And a lot of them say, oh, disabilities, we just pull the tooth if there's anything wrong. I don't want her teeth all pulled. So we're running into brick walls everywhere. And you mentioned Medicaid and you mentioned disabilities, and I'm just hoping that maybe something can be done with that. And like a lot of people have said, if there's anything I can do to help, I'd be right there. So thanks very much.
Fantastic. I'll be following up because we really are going to make a huge push. What good is the coverage if no one has access to it? So.
Send me an email. I may have an idea about the psychiatric services. So if you send me one tonight or tomorrow, I'll get right back to you.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay, great. I'll
And this will be our last speaker tonight. Thank you so much.
Best for last.
Hello, my name is Kate Powers. I was aware of the time, so I had already decided to be very brief. My major concern is health care for those who are left out of the system, the immigrants who are not allowed to buy it. Many can't afford it, but yeah. I had one episode with a former student who called me at 3 in the morning to ask for a ride to the emergency room. She had a severe pain in her ear. She'd been getting earaches for well over a year, but she didn't call me until her eardrum burst. And another one, a friend that my immigration group is helping, does construction work and is very skilled, very talented. He's having some severe problems right now that could cause him to retire. He's not 40 yet, and he has 3 young children. So we've got people who are closed out who will die young or be severely disabled. So anyway, it's time. So thank you. I think is that something you're working on, Jillian? I know I've seen Derek.
Yes.
I've seen Dirk.
We actually, I believe the whole team is supportive, and it is a bill we just raised today in the Human Services Committee to continue to expand Medicaid access to undocumented immigrants here in the
Excellent,
state.
thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
And I know some folks here have some conflicts. They might have to leave, but if there's other people who haven't had a chance to speak yet, we're happy to entertain them. Is that? Okay. Yeah. Okay.
To pick a daughter up at theater, sorry.
Yeah, hey, that's life.
Thanks for extending the time. I didn't know we were coming up against the deadline. So I'd just like to talk about 2 proposed bills, and going off of what Derek said, I know that a lot of bills were proposed, and I acknowledge that a lot of them are zany, a lot of them get news, and a lot of them
Do you
won't
mind
even...
sharing your name?
Kyle
and where
Zelazny,
you're from?
sorry.
And where you're from? And where you're from?
West Hartford, 20th or 18th.
Awesome.
But, yeah.
Thank you.
So I know a lot of them are zany, and a lot of them won't even get out of committee. But still, it's not always a great look when some of the zanier ones even are proposed. And so one of them, HB 5480, the sort of infamous one in the last 24 hours, the one that allows or would allow 12-year-olds and over to get vaccinated without parental consent. That was a bit of a surprise, and I texted Democrat friends, Republican friends, and everyone was like, well, where'd that come from? And I just have some questions. This was brought up at the Newington town hall last night, and Matt sort of equivocated. Matt Lesser sort of equivocated. Kate, I believe you said something like, I talked to the constituents, but probably not. And then Gary actually pleasantly surprised me. He gave the most non-political, straightforward answer and said, as constituted, probably not. So that was nice. And so I would just like to ask you guys, I'll even add the qualifier for you. As constituted, do you support allowing 12-year-olds to get vaccinated without parental consent? And if so, do you have any idea on who would be liable if something happens? And if the situation is reversed, if the parent wants vaccination but the child does not, then what happens there too? And then those 2 sort of follow-up questions are only if you believe that, yes, the child should be able to get vaccinated without parental consent. So if we could just maybe go down the line, Derek at first, and
Sure. The beginning of my answer is going to sound like a political answer. I'm warning that it will a little bit. And then I have not seen it. I've heard about the bill, as you know. But-
that's a common refrain that we've not seen it yet. It's 3 lines,
No, I
and
know,
it's
but
literally.
Let me finish. Let me finish because it'll get filled out later, and there's a lot of bills that attract a lot of attention at the beginning, and
Right.
to your point, there's no way we could read all 3,000 of these bills, nor would it be an effective use of our time when we're dealing with issues like you just heard about. So that said, the reason for it, and I might be missing something, but hasn't been explained to me, considering
Okay.
the bills that we've passed recently in terms of, mandating certain vaccinations for public school, as an example, which that gets at a large chunk of the student population. So I haven't seen anything yet, and again, maybe I'm missing a compelling reason to kind of go down this road when we have a lot of other issues that we're going to be dealing with. But
So that's, and I hate to sound like I'm equivocating, but that's kind of my thought process.
He is giving you an honest answer. There are so many, and zany or not, is the process. People can put in all types of bills.
I tried to acknowledge that, yeah.
Right, and we don't necessarily know the reason or rationale behind it. It looks like what I've seen is a sentence at this point. There's been no public hearing. I don't know if it will go anywhere. As a parent, my first, response.
That's what I'm looking for, a gut reaction.
Yeah, so my first reaction was, where's this coming from?
Right.
My 12-year-old? I don't think I would put them in the position of making a decision like that.
What's the reasoning? Yeah.
Right, but again, that is all that I know about this. I know it's received a lot of attention, and it may or may not, when I mentioned screening before, so many times these bills come through a process, and they never make it out of that.
Right.
So we just have to kind of wait and see, but that's really all I could say.
I did want to acknowledge that, it's probably not even going to make it out of committee. But again, to my other point, though, the very fact that some of these things get proposed is not a great look. So
it's just a part of the process.
I understand.
And it may not, and that may be as far as it gets.
I understand, yeah.
I would actually just kind of gently push back about whether it's a good look or not. Democracy is messy, but when you start saying to somebody, to a lawmaker or to constituents, you can't propose, or we can't even have a conversation about certain ideas, I think that's not where we want to be as a democracy. I will tell you that, depending on what the issue is, it can be somewhat frustrating because you'll get a ton of emails, right? And your inbox will explode on an issue that you're like, look, this probably isn't going to go anywhere. That said, for some constituency group, and perhaps for a lawmaker or two or whatever, that's an important issue. And so democracy is messy, but I think it is important. And we have bills to make, lollipops, the candy of Connecticut. I mean, things like this. And I scratch my head and I'm like, really? Should we be, and those things die in committee. So anyways.
So I just want to make clear, I'm glad this was proposed, so that we can talk about it and everything. That's the point.
Yeah.
There's a difference between calling something a bad look and saying things shouldn't be proposed and discussed. So the second bill that
Hang on.
Sorry.
So I'm not a hard yes yet, or I'm not a hard no, when we're talking about what's the reasoning for the bill. So part of the process is the public hearing, and I sit on public health, so if the bill does get raised and gets a public hearing, Derek, you're on there too now, right? So we'd be in the Public Health Committee, we'd get to hear both sides, and that's what I'd make a decision.
Gotcha. And then, Kate, if I was incorrect in sort of my paraphrasing of your answer, please.
I think my answer was probably similar to my colleagues, just saying that for myself, especially not in serving on public health, I certainly would want to pay attention to the hearing and hear from everyone that comes forward, because it's going to be parents, it's going to be kids themselves, it's going to be medical professionals. So amazingly enough, people don't often think this, but we really do try to take in a range of information when we're making decisions. So I'm just very open to knowing more about this bill.
Okay. Yeah, and then just, some of the considerations, as I mentioned, is if it's reversed, if the parent wants vaccination but the child doesn't, what happens? Because this is the situation where the child does, parent doesn't. And then if, liability too. The next bill is actually kind of interesting, the firefighter testing bill. And so this is sponsored by 5 major Democrats, and it's interesting. So firefighters in Connecticut, there's a standardized test that you have to pass, and it involves you wear this really heavy 50-pound physical vest, and you go through the gauntlet of all these intense physical activities. It's really difficult. Only 10 to 15 women pass it. There's a bill that will allow the creation of an alternate test that women can take if they don't pass the first one. Firefighters, including many female firefighters, are worried that this replaces merit-based hiring and endangers Connecticut residents, because the whole point of these tests is to make sure that someone can go into a burning building in their 50 pounds of gear and pick up human beings and move debris and get out. So I just have, you sort of, when you're in a burning building, you either you're worried about being saved. You don't care who's saving you. And if as a firefighter, you either have the strength to go into the building burning to save them, or you don't. And so I guess what is sort of the reasoning behind this? And if men, because there's plenty of men that fail the test too, if men fail the test, are they also offered the alternative test with the lower standards? And if they're not, wouldn't that be discrimination?
If it's okay with everyone, I'm going to go first because then I am going to head out. And so thank you, everyone, for a great evening. So again, I'll explain my reasoning. So I would be asking similar questions. So I don't know what committee this would go to. Do we know?
Public safety.
Public safety. And so I'd be asking, I usually start with, is this done in other states? Has this test been used before? If someone passes this test, would they be only eligible to do certain things in the fire as a firefighter compared to those who pass the full test?
Okay.
So I'd be asking those questions during the public hearing in order to come to a decision on my support or not. So that's where I'm at. Again, thank you.
And I totally echo what Jillian, Representative Gilchrist just said. The public hearing process is so important because it teases out so many of the questions like you're asking. It allows us to ask questions, really hear an analysis. It could be from experts. It can be from people in the field. It's usually an opportunity to really dive into and get expert research. And sometimes you hear things and learn things that you simply don't know. On face value, it can seem simple. And then you're like, oh, I didn't consider that, and there's this information that comes in. So that's the reason that it's difficult to make a complete determination at this point with the amount of information provided. And also, could you please tell me that bill number?
That is HB, the firefighter one, right?
Yes,
That
please.
is HB 5501.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any other?
Well, no, Derek, do you have any thoughts on the
No, I
firefighter
think
bill?
They summed it up well. I haven't read the bill yet, but I think that we, a blessing and a curse, most of the time it's a blessing of our citizen legislature is that we bring a lot of different experiences. We are oftentimes not subject matter experts on the topics. This is one. I'm not an expert on firefighting. I don't serve on the Public Safety Committee, so I try to approach these things with a great deal of humility and intellectual curiosity, and so and feedback from folks who are experts in it. So that's how I'll approach it.
If I may just add a comment on this bill to the crowd, I believe that this bill illustrates the difference between equality and equity. Equality would be everyone facing the same test, and you pass, you firefighter, you fail, you don't. Equity is where we have to have the same, it's almost like quotas, we have to have the same amount of male and females, and so we will have to lower the standards to allow more females in. And that's fine in a lot of things, but maybe not when physical, you need to like carry someone out of a burning building. So that's all I just wanted to add.
Sir, if I may add, equity is, there's a beautiful picture where they show a ball game and that's being played and there are 3 people standing
I'm aware of the picture.
and looking. Well, I'm saying it to the people who may not be. And everyone standing on the same platform is equality. Giving, though, people who are different heights the boxes that they need to look over and see the game, that is equity. So that is a different determination, particularly if you're familiar with it. That's a different interpretation.
And we're not talking
of
about
equity.
watching a baseball game, we're talking about saving people from burning buildings.
Right, and
Thank
so
you.
it's really important for us to get that expert testimony and input so that we have an awareness and understanding of what we're really dealing with. But thank you so much. Thank you.
Andrew Sellinger from West Hartford. I have 2 children with Fragile X syndrome, and I wanted to comment on 5001, and I have a question as well. When they talk about expanding the services throughout ID, I want to know if that includes getting case managers down to the waiting list, or are they specifically just addressing the waiting list when they say they want to, reduce the wait list? Is it a wait list for services to get into to the system, or is it for residential placement?
So we just met on this for the first time today. And I'm sorry that Representative Gilchrist left us. She chairs the Human Services Committee. But I can tell you that there are subcommittees to kind of dissect the areas of need and what this bill will be addressing. What I'd love to have is your input on what your recommendation would be, so that we are sure to cover the right areas and not make unintended errors, you know.
Having experienced some confirmed neglect and some abuse unsubstantiated for service delivery in the system, we would like particular attention to the quality of services, not just expanding the services that are delivered. That's it. Thank you so much.
Please make sure you leave your information or that I can
I
connect
signed
with you. Oh,
in.
awesome.
I did.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you so much.
I would just add, as we wrap up, certainly anyone who's here, if there's anyone that would benefit, I left my stack of cards with my email, cell phone, all the information, because again, we are here every day for you all, not just tonight. So happy to keep connecting and making sure that your voice is heard.
Once again, it's just really nice to be in person and to be together. And we need to keep these conversations going. And although we won't have these forums all the time, like every month, but we will have them periodically, please know, as Rep. Farrar indicated, that we are here. Love to hear your input, your suggestions, your frustrations, whatever it is, but because we really are here to represent and to serve you. Unfortunately, I did not bring my cards. I'm getting some new ones because mine are all different between my towns and they moved my offices and numbers. But you can find me on the CGA website on Tammy Exum, 19th District. It's a pleasure to see you this evening, and drive safely.
Applause. So that'll do it, and we'll some of us will, if we have time, we'll hang here for a little bit. If you didn't have a chance to express your opinion or ask a question or whatever, we'll be here for a little bit, and you have our emails and everything as well. So thanks again.